We live in a fast-paced and hectic world where it's easy to feel overwhelmed, stressed, and out of control. How do you manage all the competing pressures without losing sense of yourself? How do you stay focused enough to not only plot a path, but follow it? Welcome to Master Your Life, a show that offers inspiration, insight, and intelligence, as well as success stories from many walks of life that can show you how you can control your own destiny. Our knowledgeable and entertaining host and her guests give practical advice that you can use every day in the quest to master your life. Now, here's your host, Leah Mattinson.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Master Your Life, the show of insight, intelligence, and inspiration, where I ask you each episode to consider who is it you are right now and who is it you would most love to be. What kind of life are you trying to create? What kind of person are you trying to become? You know, we all have areas in our life that we're trying to master, and part of the exploration of humanness is to tap into our creativity. And we spend a lot of time learning new things and not so much time being creative. So it's my absolute delight today to welcome back Pam Peled. Pam's a prolific author and teacher and writer, and just a great woman on this face of the world, I think. So welcome to the show again, Pam. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm good. Thank you. Fine.
Wonderful. So last time we got together, we talked about your book. Your book title again was For the Love of God and Virgins. And I laughed because it was just such a great title, you know. So my delightfulness, I was delighted by the title, and so I was really happy to read that. But so anyone who hasn't picked up Pam's book yet, this is a great opportunity to do that. And we're going to talk today, though, about some of the other work that you do, and a big focus right now for you is your work with Shakespeare. So what is it that you are doing, and why? Why did you get into this interest in this area?
I've been a lecturer in Shakespeare for many years. I've run classes for students, and I've given lectures to the public in general on cruise ships and all over the world in different formats. And then I was invited to do a lecture on one of these Zooms. You know, it's a funny thing. People are feeling so isolated now in their homes, whether they're in London or New York or Toronto or on a farm or whatever. Everybody's just stuck at home. And it's actually a very wonderful time to start branching out and getting an education in things that you haven't really known about. So there's a lot of lovely Zoom lectures that you can take. And I did one on Shakespeare, and we got a lot of requests for more. So I thought maybe this is a good time I can't go and lecture in any sort of face-to-face
right. Arenas. Yeah, you're not going to be on a boat right now.
I'm not going to be on a boat right now. So I decided to do it from my living room, which it's a challenge for me, you know, all these things of screen sharing and looking, but whatever. And it's been very, very successful. I'm really enjoying it. Although Shakespeare never goes out of fashion, no matter in what format or framework you teach it and you discuss it. And I'm amazed to see how people are responding and emailing me and talking at the end of the club, because, you know, what do we talk about? We talk about feminism and racism and anti-Semitism and nurture versus nature, and does absolute power corrupt? How could Macbeth, we can talk about it in more detail, but how could Macbeth ever be more appropriate and relevant than it is today? And Romeo and Juliet, many different, everything that Shakespeare writes about is as relevant as it ever was, and as beautiful. And people are loving it, I'm happy to say.
And so why are people so wild about this guy who's been dead for over 400 years?
It's a good question. So, for example, I've just done a two-part series on The Merchant of Venice. And The Merchant of Venice, as some of us know, is a play about a Jewish moneylender called Shylock, who lends money, and he says he'll do it for a Christian courtesy. He won't take interest. If Antonio can't pay back the bond, 3,000 ducats, after 3 months, he'll take a pound of flesh from Antonio. So it seems like a very simple plot outline, but actually every single word can be analyzed. First of all, they're the things that most people don't know. Flesh, for example, a pound of flesh. So flesh was Elizabethan slang for the male sexual organ. And everybody knows where Jews take flesh from, that Jews mutilate little baby boys when, I'm saying mutilate, of course, in quotation marks, when they have a circumcision, a Brit Milah. So when Shylock said, I'll have a pound of flesh, the Elizabethan audiences would have creased up laughing because they know what that means.
Right.
But the play develops into very serious issues. Antonio, in fact, defaults on his loan. He can't pay it back. Shylock demands his pound of flesh. And the play can be seen as a juxtaposition of Christian mercy. You know, Portia comes afterwards and says to Shylock, you must be merciful. The quality of mercy is not strained. You, that beautiful speech, it droppeth as the gentle rain from the heavens. And you can see the play as a juxtaposition of Christian mercy as against Jewish intransigence and Jewish justice. He wants his pound of flesh, that eye for an eye justice. But actually, if you delve deeper into the play, you can see this play as a magnificent example of the erasure of difference between people, the erasure of difference between blacks and whites. I mean, I'll just tell you very briefly, of course, we don't have time to go into the whole play now, but in the same play, there's this beautiful woman who's rich, gorgeous, and good. That's what she's described as by someone who wants to marry her. In Belmont is a lady richly left. That's the first attraction. She's enormously wealthy. She's drop dead gorgeous, and she's good. And Bassanio wants to marry her. But lots of people, the whole world wants to marry her. And one of the suitors that comes to woo her is the Prince of Morocco, who's very dark. And the Prince of Morocco comes and makes this wonderful speech. He says to her, lady, I know you probably don't like the color of my skin. He says, mislike me not for my complexion. And then he explains to her that the only reason that his skin is dark is because he lives near the equator and he has to have a dark skin to protect himself. But he says, you can bring me the fairest skinned man from the Arctic Circle, right, where they never see the sun, and make incision for our love, cut our skins, and you will see that our bloods are equally red. It's the most stunning speech of erasure of difference between races, which in Elizabethan, early modern times in the 1600s was unheard of. Nobody was talking about equality for the other. Nobody was talking about the erasure of difference between races. And suddenly Shakespeare writes this magnificent speech about, if you make incision for our love, you will see that our bloods are equally red. So that's one. And the other erasure of difference is between men and women. And that's equally valid today.
Right. That's a very hot topic right now, I think, Pam. So that gives me I'm all goosebumpy. I actually love Shakespeare, but it's nice. It's part of the dialoguing about Shakespeare's work, I think, is that it gets you to remember those things that maybe you've read or that we all took that Shakespeare in high school, at least here, that was part of the curriculum. I'm not sure if it still is worldwide, but it certainly was in the day. Now that's a while ago. So this is like the re-invitation in, but some people haven't been exposed at all. And
well, I got an email from an 86-year-old man who said that this is his first encounter in his life with Shakespeare. And he's so happy to be, it's a good point, Leah, because how do you pitch a lecture like this? Some people have done an MA in my audience. I have, to my complete amazement, enjoyed the actress Janet Suzman, you know, the famous British. She popped into one of my lectures, and she's actually acted as Portia on the Stratford stage. And I have other actresses from London who are living in New York, another actress. And I have people who've studied Shakespeare and love his work. And I have people who really don't know the first thing about the plot. So I have to gear it to everybody.
Yes, and so you can you can look up William Shakespeare and his work, and you can see all of his plays and all of his quotes. And again, it's not the same thing as actually taking a deep dive in. So we were talking about this past week. That's definitely come up as a strong theme, is this masculine, feminine, men and women. So let's just develop that a little bit further, because I do think that's a hot topic right now, especially about men's ability to, be manly and women's ability to be feminine.
This is a topic that really compels me in Shakespeare, because in Shakespeare's time, women were nothing. Women had absolutely zero rights. They were the property of their fathers. And when they got married, they became the property of their husbands. They didn't have an education, so they couldn't be independent. They couldn't earn money. They were not allowed to own property. So they went straight from their father's home to their husband's home. If they didn't get married, they became a spinster. A spinster was literally a person who lived with their family, their sisters or their brothers, and spun wool. That's why they were called a spinster. Another thing is that women didn't even have their own bed in those days. Unmarried women slept in the attic on a shelf. And if nobody came to marry them, they were left on the shelf. Until today, we say, oh, she's been left on the shelf. And that's what it means. And there was this big question that was being argued on the Elizabethan stage of whether women were intrinsically inferior to men. Was it a matter of nature? Were they absolutely unable to be as good as men in any way? Or was it nurture? Was it because they haven't been given the tools? Is that why they were not as successful as men? And Shakespeare analyzes this magnificently, and he does it in many ways. But one of the interesting ways to me is that he has 12 characters in his plays, 12, who are, of course, there were no women actors in Shakespeare's day. So all the women's parts were acted by young boys until their voices broke. And there are 12 young boys who are playing women, who then cross-dress in the middle of the play. They shake off their skirts and they put on men's clothing. And for the rest of the play, or for a good proportion of it, they are men. And the question is why? Why does he do this so often? And I think that one of the possible answers is that he shows that if you give women the tools, once Portia puts on her clothes of a lawyer and she goes to Venice, she wins the court case with ease. Antonio would have died if it wasn't for Portia saving the day. And all the women who cross-dress as men fly. And so Shakespeare seems to be saying, it seems clear to me that Shakespeare is saying, it's not nature that makes women inferior. It's nurture. They're not given the right opportunities. Give them the tools and they will be as good as men, even better. I think Shakespeare was a really huge feminist. Or I have to say, of course, nobody knows what Shakespeare really thought. We can't know. We don't have his diaries. He didn't give any interviews on cable, on TV. We don't know.
Right. That leaves part of the mystery, which is good. We need some.
No, but there's a way of directing these plays to make this quite crystal clear.
And it's very cool that that it's so beautifully put on stage and in written work, and also played out, we can see in history, by women who were successful, or if they were campaigning for something, that often they had to take on that masculine mystique, literally disguise themselves to survive often. So this is an important point, I think, not just for the stage, but for real life, how much we've been coerced into co-opting our own femininity and womanhood in order to fit into some sort of either hierarchy, get a job, get along with other people. And so these are real relevant conversations that have been going on now for 400 years.
Very, very relevant. And they're so beautiful and they're so interesting. For example, in Macbeth, I'm going to, on Monday, this coming Monday, I'm doing a course, a one lecture on Romeo and Juliet with very interesting. For example, what do different population groups think of Romeo and Juliet? For example, 𝙗𝙤𝙤, 𝙗𝙤𝙤 is a group in Israel. 𝙗𝙤𝙤's children, high school children, what is their take on Romeo and Juliet, which is very, very interesting and different from many other high school kids' take. I'll just give you a little spoiler. They think that it's obvious that Romeo and Juliet should die, because they disobeyed their parents' wishes. And they said if they had lived, the message of the play would be, you can disobey your parents and get away with it. And that would be a terrible message, because of course your parents know better than you. So isn't that interesting? Because if you teach Romeo and Juliet, say in a California high school, I'm sure that the kids would take from it, or maybe not, but I think, you must marry for love. Love conquers all. You must follow your heart. So different cultures still today see the play with a very different message. And then there's the speech after that. I'm doing a three-week sessions on Macbeth. And what you were talking about with women, Lady Macbeth wants to kill. She wants to kill Duncan, and then when she can't do it, she wants her husband to kill the king. And before she gets up to her evil machinations, she makes this speech. She appeals to the spirits, and she says, "Unsex me here." You remember that speech? "You powers of darkness, unsex me here." And then she gives this really dramatic speech of how she wants her milk to dry up, and she wants to stop having her period. She wants to really abrogate her femininity. Now you can say, why? Why would Shakespeare give a speech like this? And I think that one of the possible reasons is that in order to commit real evil, you can't be a woman. She has to be unsexed, because Shakespeare believed women are nurturing and women can't be as evil as that. It's a very interesting take.
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
There's, of course, the opposite take. Some people say Lady Macbeth shows that Shakespeare can't stand women. It depends on what you want to prove. That's the wonderful thing with Shakespeare. You can co-opt him to strengthen your agenda, whatever it is.
So I know we're mid interview, but let's tell people how they can get a hold of you, so they can get out a pen and paper. And we may as well do one little shout out right now, because the lecture series start again this upcoming Monday, which is, what's the date of that?
I think it's the 18th.
Yes, it's the 18th. So if you're interested at all, you're going to want to get registered right away. And then, are you running this series more than 3 weeks, Pam? Or
yeah, it's ongoing. It's ongoing.
Okay.
It's ongoing.
Very good.
It's ongoing. At the moment, I'm focusing on Shakespeare. And as we grow, I hope to include Chaucer and Jonathan Swift and maybe Martin Virginia Woolf, but and more. But at the moment, I'm focusing on Shakespeare. So you can it's easy to register. You can just go to my Facebook, which is Pamela Peled, and you'll see all the information. And there's a link that you just click and you register.
So make sure that you use Pamela, because I know I've got you listed as Pam Peled on the Zoom on the recording today. So Pamela Peled. Or
you can email me at peledpam, PELEDPAM, peledpam@gmail.com.
Fabulous. And of course, you anyone who misses that can get a hold of Pam through me as well. So we'll make sure
that on the chat. Should I put that on the chat, peledpam?
Sure. And then, so this is a really cool learning opportunity. It's also, it's pretty a wide age range of people that you can speak to about this subject matter as well, right, Pam? So
totally. There's the stuff.
thank you.
Oh, as I said, there's this 86-year-old man who's encountering Shakespeare for the first time, and I have high school pupils. I've taught it even at to lower age than high school pupils. It's amazing what Shakespeare can do. You know, Leah, I had a group when I was teaching at a school. I had a group of children. I don't know what you say in Canada when you're in your last year of school, your matric year.
Grade 12, matric
Grade
year.
12. So it was a group of very problematic students who just really, they thought they couldn't do anything. They were failing most of their subjects. They were such lovely kids, but they were somehow, maybe they had learning disabilities or whatever. And I went into the class and I used to find them with it was way before mobile phones and computers. I used to find them with their feet on the desk, no shoes on, reading a newspaper. So I said to them, you know what? I live across the road from the school. I'm going to just give you a treat. I'm going to take you home and I'm going to teach you Romeo and Juliet in my living room. But we signed a contract that they would come to class with shoes on and they would be ready with a pencil and a paper and their books on the table for the other lessons. And I said, if you come to my Romeo and Juliet lessons and you do all of this, you'll get a good grade, you'll pass, even if you don't do anything else. They had to do their homework for other classes. You know, they had to do their homework for me, but not for Romeo and Juliet. Anyway, it was such a resounding success. I brought them home. I lived across the road. In those days, there were no way of showing movies at school. And we put the TV in my living room and they just loved it. And it turned them around. Suddenly they felt that they were intellectuals. We had all these discussions. When we finished, they asked for more. And a few years later, I met one of the girls. She was working as a summer job in a petrol station, you know, pumping gas.
Right.
And she said to me, the Leonardo DiCaprio movie had just come out. And she said to me, I nearly called you because I wanted to thank you for making me feel for the first time in my life like I was an intellectual. She said she went with her friends and she could explain the meanings and the slang and the images and the message. And she said it was really, you know, it gives understanding these plays just opens up your mind. It's more than just the play.
Right. Which we need more than now than ever, an open mind, really, to be right, to be able to communicate and to look each other in the eye and be able to have conversations about things heart to heart. And mind to mind also, so that you're not, you know, lured down the path by your heart, but that you can also think with your head. So it is fun. I remember in high school, our high school English teacher teaching, which one was, I think it was Hamlet maybe, but it was in the days of reel to reel. So he, you know, he maybe bored us a bit. So he brought in this reel to reel of some actors actually doing the conversation, the whole play. And it took it from being really dry and boring on a page to alive, because it was actually actors delivering this little dialogue. Yeah, it was very, very cool.
So I had a whole discussion with Janet Sisman, who is, you know, one of the best, if not the best, Shakespearean actress in England. And she was saying how that's the whole beauty of Shakespeare, is the performance. Mm-hmm. It's that you can't discuss it without actually see it. It's true. I use movie clips in my lectures. So they do, and I analyze little speeches as nicely as I can. And it comes very much alive.
And so would you recommend for people that they watch a film or read the play before they take a class, or just come take the class and get submerged?
Just come take the class. There's lots of things that people actually, even people who know Shakespeare don't know. Especially the slang. One of the Shakespearean, 𝙤𝙤𝙩𝙩𝙡, I don't know if you know, but 𝙤𝙠𝙩 was Shakespearean slang for to have really good sex. To die. And where did this come from? It comes from the French belief, le petit mort, that every time you have an orgasm, you shorten your life by a minute. Did you know that? So people usually do their calculations for a bit when they hear that. But
Fun facts.
How long do they still have to live? Yeah. But once you know that, then there's lots of lines in the play that absolutely open up, because there are many times that people say, I would like to die for you. For example, Goneril in King Lear, she tells Edmund that if he helps her to kill her husband, she'll happily die for him. And you think, why is she going to the trouble of killing her husband just to commit suicide? But she doesn't mean that at all. So that's very, very, it's a wonderful thing to learn. It opens up the text instantaneously. There's another word, the word nothing, for example. Nothing means anything to do with sex, anything, the sexual organs, having sex, anything. So we all know the play Much Ado About Nothing. Yes. And actually, the whole play it's a very serious topic. It's whether you can trust a woman to be loyal to you. If you remember, Much Ado About Nothing is all about where the hero, the heroine of the play is confusingly called Hero. And the play is about whether Claudio, her husband-to-be, can trust her. Has she been messing around with other men even the night before the wedding? And he is tricked into believing that she has. And he is ready and willing for her to die. He wants her to die. You remember at the wedding, he pushes her and he says, you're a stale orange. She's as pure as the driven snow. She's done nothing wrong. But he's been tricked, and he believes the trick and the lies and the slander. And so the whole play is about Much Ado About Nothing, has a double meaning here. It's the same plot as Othello, where Othello is equally tricked into believing that Desdemona has been untrue to him. And that's a whole nother wonderful play that's so relevant, because he abuses his wife so badly after he believes that she's cheating on him. Doesn't he know his wife? I mean, doesn't he even give her a chance to explain or defend herself? He starts off by verbally abusing her, and then he pushes her and hits her. He physically abuses her. And by the end of the play, he kills her. And even after he kills her, if you remember, Desdemona, who doesn't even know what she's done, she says to him, what have I done? And he says, you know what you've done, you strumpet. And she says, who have I been untrue with? She has no idea what he's talking about. Anyway, he suffocates her, and then her maid comes flying into the room, and Desdemona bizarrely wakes up from the dead for 1 minute or less. And she says, if anybody asks who did this to me, the answer is nobody. I did it to myself. Commend me to my fair lord. And she dies again, protecting her husband after he has killed her. And it's the most chilling portrait of an abused woman who is blaming herself even after he kills her. It's so unfortunately true to life. It's such a lesson. It's such a powerful play to teach young women, don't ever blame yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How more relevant can you get than that? It's wonderful.
Yes, and it is relevant right now. I know that people were suggesting that it would be okay. some of my white male friends who are in their 50s were suggesting that it was okay for women and children to be going to shelters, because from their perspective, at this time when people are losing their homes and their jobs, et cetera, that would be a safe place, because they really don't have any idea how unsafe those kind of places are, and that women are abused in those places, but men have no sense of protecting them. But when I said to this person, do you have any idea what actually happens to women? Like, it's still now. So there's still now, when we think that we're all civilized, and, we're not that civilized. We're still we're still very barbaric and very discompassionate, uncompassionate. But this is always an opportunity.
Right? Such a good point. It's such a good point, because when you read the plays and you come to grips with the issues that they're discussing, for example, in The Taming of the Shrew, mm-hmm. What are the legitimate ways to tame your wife? Are there any? what's the gender battles in marriage, the battle of the sexes, who tames who. These issues are just equally as relevant today as they were 450 years ago. Nothing about human nature has changed, nothing. Technology has changed, electricity has changed, antibiotics, but human nature until today has remained the same. Human nature might be changing now because of technology. We might be outsourcing our minds to machines, which is a whole nother discussion, but still we're the same as we were.
Right. And this is the opportunity, though, is that there has been a lot of the same frequency. I think we've had a few blips along the way where we maybe have improved ourselves, but then kind of fallen back into the old habits and the old ways of thinking. But this is a time of higher consciousness. So universally, divinely, when people are conscious about evolution and wanting to come more into balance with, I think for women, it's the, not being so overrun and having more control, but also not defaulting to the angry, really that masculine anger. And for men to not default to the anger, and also to not be always thinking about sex all the time, because that's the other thing, is that sex is like 99.9% of the population. That's what drives them. So they don't actually use their intellect much at all.
Because maybe of the male population.
I think it's both here. The evidence here is that a lot of women have gone very much masculine, though. So to that, it's an interest. That's a whole nother conversation. But that
I'm not sure that the evolution and people have evolved that much and are that much more civilized than they were before. I think that in certain societies, I think Canada's a lucky society. It's an open, liberal, everybody can have their say, Canada and possibly America. But if you take the world at large, I'm not sure in India that there's been such a huge change, or Africa or China, for women, or in very patriarchal, deeply religious communities, whatever they may be. There's a huge amount of women who are still almost, if not entirely, in the same situation as they always were, for example.
Right. So this is the hope of the raising consciousness, I guess, of why we have technology and why we're able to do these Zoom meetings, is that the collective consciousness raises as we go along, but that some men and women step into that more fully, whatever civilized is, but where you actually regard one another through the lens of pure positive energy and wanting the best for one another. So I think that it's like Shakespeare is very relevant, because those conversations will be going on for the next 450 years, most likely.
And also, apart from all the relevance and all the issues and all the intellectual and lovely philosophical, it's such fun. It's such fun. It's so beautiful, and it's so, you just want to learn it off by heart and make those words your own, which is also what I try and give this over to my students. How gorgeous it is! How lovely!
How lovely it is to be human. And maybe that's your point about the human
and to have those words at your fingertips.
Right. Yeah.
And those words, they're helpful to us. When we're stuck down in lockdown and every day seems the same, and you say tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps on in this petty pace from day to day. It's just so you can always find a quote that explains exactly how you're feeling at the moment.
Yes. And he also invented a lot of words themselves that hadn't been used prior.
Hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds. So like another encyclopedia, Shakespeare.
Absolutely. There's nothing like Shakespeare. And I think lots of people say, oh, I don't like Shakespeare. I never liked it. But then when they start to learn it, they say, wow, I wish my high school teacher taught us that, made it so.
Because how many plays and writings was there, Pam? Like, is there? Because there's, plays, right? Like art, writings.
What was the question? How many are there?
Yeah, because I think people are familiar with, 5 or 6, but
He wrote 37 plays and 154 sonnets, which are magnificent. I've done a few of the sonnets in my course, and I'm going to revisit the sonnets. And they're just magnificent and funny and sad and moving and brilliant. And he wrote some long poems as well, but he's 37 plays.
Yeah.
Some of them are the history plays.
Yeah. So very, very prolific creator. And
huge. He used to apparently just write his plays almost not crossing anything out. They used to flow out of him, more or less like Mozart used to write his music.
Yeah, incredible, incredible. And so what are you speaking about again this coming Monday and then the following week?
This coming Monday, I'm speaking about Romeo and Juliet. But because, of course, you can't do a whole play in 1 hour, I'm going to just focus on a couple of the speeches, including the wonderful balcony speech, Romeo, Romeo, and Wherefore art thou, Romeo? Lots of people think that she was on the balcony going, where are you, Romeo? Come to me, baby. But she's not saying that at all. She's saying, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Why are you a Montague? Why are you my enemy? Why? Wherefore, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? Wherefore means why. And she never dreams that he's underneath her balcony waiting to shimmy up the tree and give her a kiss. She's thinking, why do you have to be the other? And then she gives that beautiful speech, what's in a name? And what a speech, another speech of erasure of difference. What does it matter if you are Jew or Arab or Christian or black or white or man or woman? What's in a name? The essence is what you are. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Beautiful, beautiful words that people actually, these words have gone into normal discourse. But we don't always remember where they come from. So I'm going to focus on a few of those beautiful speeches and what we can bring from the play. As I said, some people say it's great that they die because that keeps families together. You must learn the message of it is obey your parents or die. So I'm going to try and open up and illuminate certain things about Romeo and Juliet that people don't always think about. And then for the following 3 weeks, I'm going to do Macbeth. I like to be able to sort of meander through a play, not rush. And so we'll look at the Lady Macbeth, the women's issue. We'll especially look at power. How do you seize power? How do you keep power? What do you do with it? How can power corrupt? And we'll try and make it relevant to our world today. And unfortunately, boy, oh boy, we're relevant.
Yeah, we are. And then the third week of Macbeth, the theme of power.
And it kind of ends happily for Scotland, or more or less happily. But there's a little hint, if we're going to work with the Polanski movie, and there's a little hint that maybe nothing ever really ends happily. Polanski, who made the movie, he made it after his wife was killed. You remember Sharon Tate? Yes. And she was so terribly murdered by Charles Manson. So he had the whole fresh experience on his own skin of what the horrors that people can perpetrate on other people. And he brings it all to Macbeth. And the question is, is there such a thing in the world as a happy ending? We'll discuss that.
That sounds
that happy note.
Yes. And the other thing I'd invite people to consider is, and this is something that it's an evolving understanding. And to your point about Roman Polanski, it's like his understanding prior to the death of his wife would have been different, than it was post. So if you've listened to or been exposed to one piece of work of Shakespeare, but that was, 10 years ago, your life will have changed your perspective or your understanding or how you absorb these things. So the open-minded, back to our, how we've become evolved and more contemplative of things, is the rediving into the classics and then being able to kind of have that deeper inquiry, within. And because you've got this so beautifully formulated and the ins and outs, the tricks and the fun of it, it's like having a really great coach, right? Coach you through, oh, I never thought about that. Or, oh, I never knew that little piece of trivia. And isn't that delicious? And To the slow pace, I think that's important too, because we've got everything has to be so fast that you don't actually delight in it. It's like savoring a meal, people are very.
Absolutely. It's just pure bliss to listen to the words. But also you find that if you even learn a few little tiny sentences of his or her heart, you find them echoing in your own life. Things happen and you go, oh, horror, 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 these words are so...
more often than I want to. No.
These words are so timeless and so beautiful, and they help. They really help. How I remember when I was a young mother and my children were wanting more and more and shouting, and I just went, how thankless, more thankless than a serpent's tooth is it to have a thankless child,
Right.
They words that you assimilate into your being, and they my girls are great. They weren't really thankless children,
right.
But it was just, I was at the edge of my nerves with tiredness and sleepless nights.
Absolutely.
And they were 2 and 3.
Yeah, which is very, very human. It's very human, and people can relate, because a lot of people have had children. I have children that are 18 months apart. I remember, the same. It's like the frustration.
They were sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child. They're just beautiful lines that become part of your body.
Yes, beautifully said. Beautifully said. So when people are coming to the Romeo and Juliet, are these available on replay, or how have you got that?
I do have, but I'm not giving out the recordings at this point.
Right.
They need to sign up. And then if they miss it for any reason, I have got the recordings.
Right. Sorry, maybe that's more what I meant, is if people sign up because they're excited and then the internet goes down or some crazy things happen, there's an opportunity for people to get the replay. And so you'll miss it. It's important, though, the energy of the exchange of being in a class.
There's lovely energy. People are very excited about it. And, there is something really nice about people sitting in Toronto and in Montreal and in wherever,
anywhere in the US, anywhere in the UK, anywhere.
And chatting about Shakespeare while the world sort of goes through this cataclysmic stage. It's very, very. I'm loving it. I'm very. It's very exciting and compelling, and I hope your listeners join us.
I hope so too. Yeah, it's beautiful work and important to just foundational to being able to speak to one another. It's another love language, where you can have discourse and understanding.
Totally.
Yeah, so that's fantastic, and I want to encourage people to sign up and to be contemplating how they want to evolve in their life. Science has been so hard pushed, and we miss on the humanities, and the revisiting the humanities and the intellectual heart side of life is important, in building compassion and understanding. Universally is the invitation right now, raising consciousness. So you maybe have had some exposure to Shakespeare. You've probably not had much exposure to Pam. So Pam and Shakespeare together, it's like, will be so awesome. It's like the unifying, right? And but not everybody, it's like there's different amazing teachers, I'm sure, all throughout the world, of all kinds of things. But you're here present time doing this work, and I really appreciate that you're taking the effort to be brave and take on the technology so that you can get online, because these things aren't easy. It's lots to negotiate and to navigate the new learning and to take ourselves out of comfortable environments. But that's part of the evolution, right?
It helps to have a daughter just nearby who keeps an eye on the sharing screen part and helps me.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So everyone get registered. Pam, just one more time, a shout out for how people can connect with you.
You can either email me at peledpam@gmail.com, or easier, go onto my Facebook, Pamela Peled. You can ask to be my friend, or you can just go in and you'll see the link where you register. It's very easy to do, $10, and you'll get the Zoom link. And I hope you join us.
Beautiful.
This week, next week. Thank you very much.
Do you have a sonnet? Do you have a sonnet that you can share, or a a little something to end the show with?
I have lots of sonnets that I can share. You know, the famous sonnet, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more beautiful." That was sonnet 118. It's a beautiful love sonnet. What's less known is that it was a sonnet that really debunked the poets of the day. They were all comparing their loves to a summer's day. And Shakespeare comes along and says, "Are you nuts to compare your love to a summer's day?" He says, "Summer's days in England are too short, or sometimes sometimes too hot, the eye of heaven shines, and often is his gold complexion dimmed." And then he writes a whole nother sonnet of, "My mistress' eyes are nothing like the sun." If you remember that one, "Coral is far more red than her lips red." He debunks the poets who comparing their mistress's lips to coral and I think that this is very, very groundbreaking in English literature. I think that there's a direct line between Shakespeare and Monty Python, for example. For the British, he's
please,
debunking. Yeah. He's debunking and changing. Right. So he changed minds, he changed opinions, he changed ways we view hitting a woman. We haven't got into the subject that he's the first playwright who ever says, Kate says to Petruchio, "If you strike me, you are no gentleman." What a line is that? In those days, it was completely accepted to hit your wife, that people were saying you should hit your wife, you know, into submission. There was a saying, "A woman, a tree, a woman, a dog, and a walnut tree. The more you beat them, the better they be." That was the common wisdom. And now comes Shakespeare saying, "If you strike me, you are no gentleman." And I always think of Elizabethan women nudging their husbands and saying, "Did you hear that?" Remembering that the husband had struck them that very morning. Okay, right. Did you hear that? So he's so groundbreaking in so many ways that it's wonderful and a privilege to come to grips with his plays and his work.
Yeah, so just that is I just think a very cool thing also for people to think about the people you know in your life who are going through some maybe trials and tribulations, because family violence and domestic violence is a huge problem worldwide. Canada is no exception to that. And so not only think about registering for yourself, but having your spouse there and then telling your friends also, "Hey guys, like, why don't we do this as a group shared wisdom where we could elevate, you know, what might be happening in our lives, and so that we can talk about these issues together as a collective." So if you have some girlfriends or if you have some guy friends, do you have like more women than men? Or are you just finding it?
No, I don't have more women than men. And it's interesting that you say that, because people have started discussions of these things and carried them on in other sorts of frameworks. I know that, and also with me, and developed into long email exchanges after certain things. These are subjects that people want to continue talking about. At the end, I don't switch off the Zoom after I finish, and lots of people stay online and we talk about different things, and it's becoming more and more compelling as the weeks go by. And lots of people have also given this as a present to someone else, a birthday present, or just
what a great idea.
Instead of sending flowers, you can send one lecture. So it's been it's nice. It's really is.
And I'm really glad you pointed that out, Pam, because if you keep that Zoom room open, it's like an even better reason to go to connect with people. And what you pointed out at the beginning of the interview today is that people are really disconnected. So if this is one other way of getting connected in the world to really great people who want to talk about the same subject matter, this is kind of a shared values exercise. And so the door is open, guys, and you know how to find Pam now. And if you're struggling, then make sure you just get a hold of me and I'll make sure to get you connected. This work is really important in the world right now, more so than ever, to elevate our consciousness, elevate the way that we think about each other, the way we treat one another. And thanks again, Pam, for just being such a wonderful divine spark in this world. It's just a delight to have you on. And looking forward to attending your upcoming lecture. And everybody, this is all for us for today. Love yourselves, love each other, mind your minds. That's all for us. Bye for now. Peace, everybody.
Thank you. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.